Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to the 1085 Gridiron Podcast. It's been a while since we've sat down and recorded. My name is Jack McCurry. My co-host, Anthony Njoku, isn't with me today, but with me on the pod is friend of the show, colleague at the Dogland, and one of the co-hosts of the Paul Brown International Browns podcast. It's one Jack Duffin. Jack, how's everything going, bud?
I'm doing great. Obviously, shame about the news that's just broke, but other than that, everything's going pretty well. So, no, I can't complain. Some people struggle through lockdown. I get it. I've actually used it as a massive positive. So, feeling better. Everything's going great. So, I can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, things are going good over here. It is very hot in Ohio right now. We are in a heat wave / kind of a drought. We haven't had rain in about a week. It's mid 90s for the next week, so it's gonna be very hot over here in Ohio. But like you said, there is some big Browns news, and that's why we're sitting down doing this podcast today. Browns tight end David Njoku has reportedly requested a trade from the team, according to his agent Drew Rosenhaus, who told ESPN this. Rosenhaus is actually Njoku's new agent, and Njoku, who the Browns picked up his fifth-year option earlier this offseason, wants to move on, wants to get a new team. This isn't surprising considering who his agent is, but Jack, what was your initial reaction to the news about Njoku wanting out?
It's really been a surprise it's taken this long, to be fair, because if I'm him, the minute the Hooper deal got done, that's when I'd have been requesting a trade. Literally, after that, been looking, right, what can we do? Is there any backroom deals, anything we can sort out? And then it got compounded again when we saw the draft pick of Bryant. I think I'm right in saying there was two H Bryants. We took one of them at tight end. But it's one that the front office don't obviously trust him. And lots of fans will say, well, if you don't want to be here, then I don't want him. But wanting's a two-way street. If the team's willing to replace you with a free agent and draft someone, then they're probably not keeping you around long term. Yes, he might have one more year here, but after this, but he wants to be out on a second deal. If he doesn't get paid big on a second deal, that's probably his career earnings more or less through the floor. So can't blame him. But I think the Browns reply was smart. We don't want to lose you, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a hard ball. Obviously, Rosenhaus is a cracking agent. If you're signed to him, he's a pain in the arse if you're a team and he's one of your players. So it's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Njoku, we felt like he may be on thin ice because what happened at the end of the season, he was inactive, wasn't getting a lot of playing time. I think there was a rift there either between him and Kitchens or him and Dorsey or Kitchens and Dorsey. Obviously, those guys are moved on. Stefanski and Barry are in. And this seemed to be like a new, fresh start for Njoku potentially, and one that he could thrive in. We know, Stefanski in Minnesota used both Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr. last year. I think I seen 57% of the offensive snaps in Minnesota involved two tight ends. So this could be setting up for a potential breakout season for Njoku. And this is his fourth season in the league, and he's still only 24 years old. But like you said, they added Hooper. They drafted Harrison Bryant in the fourth round. But still, even at that point, I thought Njoku was here at least for 2020. And, he has a potential to have a good season. The Browns did pick up his fifth-year option. Maybe they trade him after the 2020 season, but it seems like he wants out. I wouldn't move him. Oh, here's where I'm indifferent. I wouldn't move him because I don't think Harrison Bryant's ready to contribute him right away just because he's a rookie. He's raw. Rookie tight ends don't come out of the gate and contribute at a high level. We've seen that with Njoku a few years ago, but also if he wants out, don't cause a firestorm. Don't cause a distraction. We've seen this with Duke Johnson last year, who also was a Rosenhaus client. This has happened in the past with guys that are represented by Rosenhaus. He tries to force a trade. Team doesn't want to move him, but then, it becomes a distraction on the field. And like I wrote on the Dogland, you have Stefanski and Barry trying to implement a new culture. Then you have this distraction on your hands. You don't want to get started on the wrong foot. You don't want to get the ball going the wrong direction. You're trying to create something, a winning environment. If you have a head case and if Njoku becomes a head case, it could lead to potential bad things down the road.
Yeah, if I'm the Browns, I'm keeping hold of him. There's nothing he can do. His value is really low. I think we discussed it just before we went on air. It's probably looking around a 4th-round pick, and that's really poor. But we'll throw out some names later in the show, sort of discussing. But the interesting thing and why he's literally got no power now is because the CBA changed the players' rights to hold out. So I'll just read from this so I get it 100% right. The player loses an accrued season towards free agency by failing to show up for camp on time or by leaving camp for more than 5 days. This would supersede the rule that removes an accrued season only if the player fails to report within 30 days before the first game of the regular season. So in the past, a player had a long time not to turn up to the season. If they miss a game, he has to play a whole nother year here for dirt cheap before he gets onto a 5th-year option. So there's no way he's going anywhere if the Browns don't want to move him. His agent is doing the right thing on trying to get him moved because he wants him to be in a scheme where he's going to get 80% of snaps, he's going to be a tight end 1, and he's got a real chance to go and develop and get paid by that team. And obviously as well, the other factor is the Browns aren't going to be able to pay everyone. So he could have an awesome 2 years and then he's still not getting paid. So do you want to get a team that's going to pay you early, extend you and have that confidence, or do you want to risk it and see in 2 years' time, are you still playing at that high level, injury free and seen as that promising youngster? So both sides are doing what's right for them. And it's going to be interesting to see who is the winner. But I really hope they hold on to him. As you said, maybe they come to sort of some friendly agreement and go, look, we'll trade you after this season. You have a good year, we'll move you on. That wouldn't be a surprise. Obviously, it's something you might not hear about until next off season and the deal's done. But I think that will probably be the compromise.
Yeah, I just think back to last year around this time, I think is when Duke Johnson had asked for his trade, and everybody's like, no, you don't have to trade him. And, then he publicly stated it once training camp opened up that he wanted to be moved. And then you had Baker speak publicly. And I just remember the firestorm that the media created with that. And it became a distraction to the point that until Duke finally got traded during the preseason, it was just a distraction. And like I said, I don't think you need that. Njoku, I think, is a talented player. He still has the chance to prove he can be a good tight end in this league. He has shown flashes of it, but there's the consistency that he needs to put together. And I talked about that with Anthony when they picked up the option, that he just needs to be more consistent. But if he's going to be a distraction, and I think there was rumors at the end of last year that he was being a distraction, and then it's best that they move on. But it sounds like Barry and Stefanski want to try to fix this. It's up to Njoku and Rosenhaus at the end of the day to try to fix it.
Yeah, and it's one that there's lots of people who talk about, we're playing a 2 tight end system. He's going to basically be a starter. So I went and dug out the snap counts for some teams that famously play 2 tight ends and sort of their numbers. So we go right back to the Pats in 2012. Gronk played 59% of snaps and Hernandez played 46% of snaps. So neither's massive, could have been injury issues, other stuff. And then we look at 2018 and we had Philadelphia Eagles. Ertz played 92% of snaps and Goddard played 48% of snaps. And then the other team that had a high amount was the Texans, which saw Griffin with 68%. And then there was Thomas with 43%, Atkins with 35%. Last year, and this is what people instantly go to and look. Oh, last year, what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles? It's not a good thing to look at those numbers because there was a complete outlier with the Eagles and with the Vikings last year. Because of the injuries to wide receivers, teams had to double down on the amount of tight end snaps. So I'll give you those numbers, but take them with a massive pinch of salt because they're only that high because of wide receiver injuries. If those wide receivers don't pick up the injuries that they got, those numbers are much lower and much more in line, probably with the others, of somewhere between 40 and 50% is what I'd have expected Njoku to get this season. But we had Goddard on 66% and Ertz on 80%, and then Irv Smith Jr. on 60%, Rudolph on 77%. So people will see those numbers and think, hey, he was going to get 60 to 60% of snaps. No, not really. Unless, obviously, if Higgins goes down injured and then suddenly there's that pressure, you're not going to play Ratley or Donovan People-Jones for 50% of snaps. So you elevate Njoku. But in all honesty, you're looking at 40 to 50% of snaps. And hey, if you want your player to be a tight end one and you think he's in the top 32 tight ends in the league, which I personally do, I think he's got a massive upside, then he's not best served by playing 40 to 50% of snaps.
No, not at all. I think, Njoku's trying to get that second contract. I think a lot of guys want to do that just because the average career doesn't last very long. And getting 40 to 50% of the snaps, you're not going to get a big contract. So I can get it from that aspect. While you were talking, Mary Kay had just tweeted out that the Cowboys she's hearing are a team of interest. And it makes sense because I'm looking at tight end depth charts across the league, and they have a hole at tight end. They have Blake Jarwin, who's been with the team for a couple years, but he's, hasn't proven a lot. So that could be a spot for Njoku. I'm also looking at Arizona as a potential landing spot. They have Max Williams, and they have Dan Arnold, who had some flashes in New Orleans, but that could be another spot, another big target for Kyler Murray. I seen a 49ers writer say that they might kick the tires as a backup to George Kittle, but they also drafted a tight end this year. So someone also mentioned New England. There's another possibility too. New England loves the tight end. Even though Brady's gone, I would imagine McDaniels would like another big athletic tight end there for Cam or whoever the quarterback's going to be there to throw to. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do trade him. Will they trade him within the conference? I don't see them trading within the division because all three teams have established tight ends. So it's going to be interesting to see what they ultimately do. I personally think they should just trade him to avoid the distraction. But Jack, when you're looking at the financial aspects, because you are a cap wizard, how will it hurt the 2020 cap as it pertains to the Browns?
Yeah, so he's only on 3 million this year, so he's on a pittance anyway. Only when talking about NFL players can you talk about 3 million a year and go, he's underpaid. So he would take a dead cap of 1.333 million. So 1.33 million this year would be dead cap because we eat that because that was part of his 5 million signing bonus when he initially joined the Browns. And then the new team would only have to pay him 1.7 million. So they're going to get a really, really cheap player. And then next year, his fifth-year option, 6 million. We don't pay a penny of that because that's a fifth-year option. It's traded to the new team where it's a guarantee for injury. The Browns aren't responsible. If he stayed and he got injured this year and he's out next year, then yeah, we're picking up that bill. But it's one that we'll happily trade that. And 6 million, any team can sit there and hide it. I don't think the Browns are going to be too bothered on if the best deal ends up within the division or ends up somewhere, they'll do it. They're not going to see him as a franchise player. If they can get better value, they'll take that deal. But I think the first two teams you mentioned are probably great landing spots. He'll obviously not be interested in the 49ers. There's no point going and backing up George Kittle if you don't want to play with Hooper. But yeah, if you're looking at the Cardinals, if you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys, personally, I hope not because I've got Blake Jarwin stashed in quite a few fantasy leagues. So it worked against me, that one. But it's one that, let's see what happens. I don't think we'll see much action for a while. I think if you're looking to do a trade, the most likely player would be someone in their final year or with a fifth-year option activated that you can pick up. But someone with one more year so they can sort of bring them into a different room and sort of have another option. Maybe a potential linebacker, maybe a safety, maybe defensive end. One of those rooms where they don't quite need a star. And you're not going to get a star for David Njoku without giving away a lot of picks and other assets. But coming in and just being that solid role player. So it makes most sense at sort of defensive end, linebacker, or safety. You've got the wild card, obviously, of a wide receiver. I don't know where the Houston Texans are at. Will Fuller's obviously... I believe in his final year, or he's got his fifth-year option next year. So that could be one that we take a pot shot on an injured wide receiver and see what happens if they're willing to move. But yeah, it's one that you're not going to get much for him. And if you're looking to trade of that you're generally looking for a player in similar cap and sort of contract situation. So kick the tyres. I think he stays. Personally, I don't think the distractions are anywhere that big. I think the media make a lot more of them than the players and sort of the dressing room actually feels. Because at the end of the day, if you're a part of that dressing room, if David Njoku's happy to sit there and just be part of the team and not really a main contributor, you don't want that person in the dressing room anyway. So you obviously want 53 players that want to win, want to be the best player they can be. So the idea that everyone's a saint and they don't really care if they're playing or not, those aren't players I want on my team either. So it's an incredibly difficult dynamic to balance 53 personalities, players and ambitions. So I think he'll play fine. I think he stays. That's where my gut is at now. I don't think we get a good enough deal.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if he can stay and, hopefully it's not a distraction, hopefully Baker doesn't, shoot his mouth off, because he's been good so far in 2020. As bad as everything else has been in 2020, Baker being silent has probably been one of the best things for the Browns. But hopefully it doesn't get into that situation like with Duke last year, where Baker's pretty much, well, you're either with us or against us, because that just seemed to rub people the wrong way. And as needed, you don't need to be, you want to be a leader, but you don't want to shoot your mouth off like that. So hopefully it gets all resolved. I mean, I am a Njoku fan. I think he can thrive in this offense as a parent as to what Stefanski has done with the tight ends in Minnesota, what this offense has done, what Shanahan's been able to do with tight ends, what his dad was able to do with tight ends like Shannon Sharp. Like, Njoku's got the physical abilities to be a good tight end in this league. If his hands were more consistent, there's no doubt that him and Hooper could be a nasty 1-2 punch at that position going into 2020 for sure.
Yeah, and you could even push him out and just play him as a slot receiver. One of the biggest, tallest slot receivers in the NFL. So it's not one way you have to leave him out there. And I don't know how much he played it sort of last year, but I remember 2 years ago he played quite a few times. They push him right out on the boundary. So he can do lots of different stuff. And then what happened with Duke Johnson, I don't think that will happen again with Baker. Lots of the veterans got onto Baker after he made that statement and said, hey, that's not right. You don't talk about other people's contracts. Because when you're at college, everyone's pulling in the same way. You're on the team or you're off the team. But when you get into the NFL, players understand that you've got to get paid. And I wish all players the best. Some of them, I don't like the price tag they're on, and I wish them all the best with another team. But I'd never feel ill with a player getting paid. I just feel ill with my front office paying a certain player. So it's one that we've got him on a really cheap deal. I think he stays. I really hope he stays. I think the upside is incredible with him. He's been unlucky. They're unlucky injuries rather than it's injuries where I'm going, that's going to happen every year. It's not good. So I really credit him, and I think we're going to see an incredible bounce back year from him. And if the deal's done behind the table of, look, we'll trade you basically whatever after this season unless Hooper bombs, then so be it. And good luck to him. Let him go out and make his money next year, trade, get paid, make him a top 20 paid tight end in the NFL.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's got the talent. It's just hopefully he can put it all together this year. Jack, looking at the calendar, we're 25 days away from training camp. You ready for the season?
I am ready for the season. Don't care too much for training camp because it's not going to be one really we can follow this year because there won't be all the reporters there. There won't be all the news coming out. It wasn't a surprise that preseason got cut to 2, but the noise coming out is probably the other 2 are going to be gone as well. So it wouldn't surprise me. Hey, who knows? This whole season moves back an entire month. If that's what it takes, it doesn't really bother me. I'd happily have them. They start training camp. They move the season back another month, have an extra month of training camp. And that way they're going to be really, really ready. So the longer the season goes back, it's actually going to help us Browns fans because Baker, the team, Stefanski, everyone gets more time together. And that's one that I'm almost preparing for the first 8 weeks of the season to be a bit of we're not going to know what the offense is like. It's going to take time. They're not going to have it together. For as much as they're saying, the Zoom meetings have been great, they're really confident. It's just nonsense for the media. It's going to take serious time in game time, but that doesn't matter. What I want to see across this season is I want to see us getting better. And I want to see what happens in the first 4 weeks, what happens in the last 4 weeks, and see, wow, they're almost two different teams. And if that's what we see this year, then we're in a great position for next season. Who knows, we might sneak into that 7th playoff place this year. But that doesn't bother me as much as the progression. If the progression's good, then we can really go and compete for a Super Bowl next season.
Yeah, I'm glad you did bring up the preseason talk because, they did cut it down to 2 games. The Players Union's trying to eliminate it all, and they have a staggered schedule of how they're going to train, like have training camp, which I think is a good idea. It's going to be interesting to see if the owners are willing to oblige by that. Giving up all 4 preseason games will be tough, though, because, well, not necessarily this year because there will be no fans. So they're already going to be losing money as it is. So that'll be interesting. But, yeah, like you said, going into the 2020 season, you just want to see progression. It's a new offense. We got new players. It doesn't matter if they stink the joint up again in the opener. Just slowly get better. I'm confident in the roster. I just want to see, is Stefanski the right coach? Did they put the right pieces in place? And if they can slowly get this thing going to where, like you said, sneak into the playoffs maybe this year, and then, next year get towards the divisional round of the AFC Championship, and then maybe in 2022, talking Super Bowl. I mean, I know everybody's like, we got to do this now, but talking about trying to build this thing into a sustained winner. We can't just go from bad to great overnight. I know other teams do it, but everybody's different. So it's going to be a fun season. Hopefully it gets rolling in September, but like you said, if it gets delayed, so be it. Just hopefully everybody stays healthy. We have a football season because, there is some doubt over here that there will be a football season because of everything going on.
Yeah, I understand the doubt. There was doubt over whether the Premier League would come back in the UK. And I know they're slightly different sports with more contact and sort of closer together. But in all honesty, I think it's going to be fine. It's one of them. If it moves back a month, I don't think anyone will remember that in the future. 16 games are getting played. Will fans be allowed in? Maybe for the playoffs. That's what they might say. They might say, hey, we're going to shut it off for the regular season. We're going to reassess it about week 12 and decide whether the playoffs will be a time when fans can come in. And I think that might be a nice way of doing it. So it's going to mitigate the risk, and then they can reassess them. But I feel really good that the NFL season will happen in one shape or form. Even if they have to do something crazy, then I think they'll make it work because it's just too much money. And it does come down to that. The Premier League season had to finish their last 7, 8, 9 games each because that's 750 million, and the NFL was going to be even bigger for one season. So it will work out. I'm really confident. I tell everyone to be really positive of the season. Who cares if it's a month late? But this offense is going to be really, really exciting. I'm confident David Njoku stays. I still think we're out there looking for a tight end because that's something interesting on the room. There's not really a blocker in that entire room. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a blocking tight end getting signed. 3 names are escaping me, but I did write them in an article on the Dogland for tight ends that of positions we should look in free agency about a month ago. So go check it out because I've got some listed, and there was a few decent names in there.
Yeah, definitely go check out that article. Just so everybody knows, the podcast is continuing. Me and Anthony seem to take this summer break after the draft. We gotta step back and take a cleanse of Browns football. We gotta have our break from it, but we're coming back. I'm sure we're gonna break down the position groups or preview the season in the coming weeks. We'll also have stuff over on the Dogland. Jack is one of our writers there. He does an awesome job as always. So definitely check that out. Be on the lookout for more episodes of the 1085 Gridiron. You can follow Jack at Jack Duffin. You can follow me at Jack McCurry08 and follow Anthony at Anthony Njoku and also at the Dogland. That's where we post our podcast episodes, our articles. So definitely all check that out. We'll talk to you guys soon. And as always, as we get on out of here, go Browns.
Go Browns.